Path of Exile 2 is finally here in early access form, and while it is certainly more approachable than its predecessor, thanks to a simplification of the skill gem system and a couple of other smart mechanical changes, it still can be easy to fall into certain trappings if you're used to how things work in a certain other popular action RPG series. So, to help avoid those pitfalls, here are 10 mistakes to avoid making in Path of Exile 2. Items aren't bound to the character that picked them up in Path of Exile 2, and you can freely swap items between your characters by placing them in your stash. So, if, for example, you're a monk and you find a really good rare quiver that would be perfect for a ranger at the required level, pop it into your stash for when you decide to make a ranger. But Mitchell, you say, I don't ever plan on making a ranger. I'm a monk till the day I die. Okay, cool. I respect the commitment, but in that case, you can at least hold on to it and then trade it to someone else for more than what you get selling it to an in-game vendor or disenchanting it. If, for whatever reason, you just don't want to trade with other people, you don't have any friends that may want some of your excess gear, and you never plan on making a character of a different class that you can give gear to, then you need to decide on whether or not you want to disenchant or sell. Generally, you'll want to prioritize disenchanting over selling. By disenchanting, you'll get shards of transmutation, regal shards, or shards of chance, depending on whether the item is magical, rare, or unique. That said, the mistake here isn't selling something that you could have disenchanted, but rather not choosing the option that makes the most sense based on what you've got. Gold is not useless in this game, as it allows you to respec your passives, which you'll almost certainly need to do at some point, and it is also used to purchase items from vendors, which, as we'll get into later, is more useful than you might think. If an item is a quality version of a weapon or piece of armor, you should almost always take that to the crafting bench and break it down there to get whetstones or armorer scraps. These are much harder to come by and will always yield the upgrade material instead of just shards. Anytime you find a weapon that you really like and want to hold on to for a little while, you can keep it around longer by using these upgrade materials to improve the quality of it, raising its stats. When you get an uncut support gem, you'll be able to select from a handful of support skills that have some obvious synergies with a particular skill. But if you check the box at the bottom left, you'll actually take the training wheels off and be able to select from every single available support skill in the game. If you're just starting out and you don't want to be overwhelmed with a ton of different possible choices, feel free to just stick with the recommended support skills. But if you've got a vision for a very particular build that you want to go with, just know that you're not restricted by these initial choices. The vendors in Path of Exile 2 aren't useless. If you're working with outdated gear that you got 5+ levels ago, it may be time to consider upgrading to higher level gear, even if that gear is just some basic equipment that you purchased from the shop. This is where those orbs come in handy. You can use a transmutation orb to turn a normal item to a magical item, augmentation orbs to add up to 2 modifiers for that magical item, a regal orb to turn a magical item into a rare item with an additional modifier, or if you have a highly valued orb of alchemy, you can skip those steps and just directly turn a normal item into a rare one. An easy mistake to make in Path of Exile 2 is to just hold onto orbs waiting for that perfect piece of magical gear that you can transform into a rare. This game is too reliant on good gear early on to not reap the benefit of these orbs, so make sure to use those orbs of transmutation, augmentation, and regal orbs fairly liberally to make sure that your gear is up to snuff. Exalted orbs, on the other hand, are worth a lot in the world of Path of Exile 2 trades, so those you should definitely hold on to either as a means of trading for something that would really make your build sing, to use in bulk trade to get a bunch of orbs that you need more of in the moment, or to improve a really good roll on a rare item by adding more to it. Much is made about Path of Exile 2's absolutely gargantuan and intimidating passive skill tree. In reality, it's actually fairly approachable and easy to understand. Every class starts at a different position on the tree, with the starting upgrades being specifically designed to enhance that class's strengths. As you look down the tree, upgrades are grouped in a way that makes sense. If you're a warrior and you're struggling with survivability, follow the trail of upgrades that increase your armor and you'll wind up at a large node that grants a large bonus to survivability. And if you continue going further down, you'll probably find even more upgrades that provide similar bonuses. And even if you do feel like you've made a mistake or you'd like to try something different, you can always go to the hood one to refund your nodes and go down a different path. Ultimately, you should always feel free to experiment. And if something isn't working, check the passive tree and see if there's a way to solve whatever problem it is you're experiencing. whether that's low damage, dying too quickly, needing more mana, etc. While it is entirely possible to play Path of Exile 2 as a completely solo player, you'll have a much easier time if you engage with other players in trades. Loot drops aren't specific to your character's class, and as such, gear that greatly enhances your character specifically is much harder to come by. As such, it'll be a lot easier to find gear that fits your character if you search online trade websites, like the official Path of Exile trading board. It is hands down the best way to get specific gear for your build, and as we've touched upon already, will generally get you full orbs for your gear as opposed to just shards. Due to how good orbs are at improving cheap and basic weapons into powerful magical and rare ones, gambling is kind of a waste of money unless you get really lucky. I'm not going to tell you to never gamble and try to fill a gap in your gear, but considering how expensive it is, how rare it is that you'll actually get something that's worth that price, and how that gold can likely be better spent by trading, the risk versus reward isn't very balanced in your favor. You don't need to explore every single map 100% every single time you reach a new one. Even just the thought of that sounds exhausting. But you should always make sure that you're hitting all the big points of interest on a map before you move on. That means every mini-boss, notable chest, notable item, and especially the bosses that grant you permanent upgrades. If you're worried that you may have missed one, open up the world map and look around for a symbol and a cross. That cross means that there's a permanent upgrade tied to that boss or treasure. And if it's not grayed out, it means that you can still get it. So make sure to do so, even if you're going back to an area that's way below your level. And those are just a handful of mistakes that are easy to make, but ones that you can now avoid in Path of Exile 2. Thanks for watching, and for more Path of Exile 2, make sure to check out our guide on what class to choose and our Sorceress build guide. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.